get one of those. In fact, I think I do have one of those. I just haven't figured out how to use it or where it is in the car or my various bags. So I'm going to try to distract you from the terrible sound inevitably in this video by getting really close to the ocean, so you'll get a good view and you'll be thinking about that, and you'll say, well, of course there isn't good sound. He's standing right in the ocean. So we're going to do that, when the reality is the sound would be terrible if I were all the way at the other side of the beach, because I need to get this windscreen thing done properly. Problem with these beach videos. But if I talk really loudly, maybe then it'll be okay. So let's get in here. So the NFL draft is today. Kodesh Tov as well to my Jewish friends, month of ER. That's not relevant to anything here other than it's a good month for healing. So Joe Mixon, Oklahoma running back. When I get back to my computer, I will put some background information in there for you can get some background links. And there we go, that's better. Very controversial. He missed a year of college. His draft stock is going down, which means the money he will make is going down, because there was an incident in which he punched out a woman and she needed medical attention. And there were no criminal charges that were pursued, and he didn't go to jail or anything, but he missed a year of eligibility, which, if you're a running back, actually might not be a bad thing if you get paid the same amount anyhow, because those are hits that everyone's legs only has so many hits in them, and he didn't get hit that year. Sort of like how Michael Vick's body had a chance to recover when he was in prison for the charges related to dogfighting, but we'll get to him later. So my view, and Ron Corey, you're welcome to comment here as well. I see you've already joined, and I love your commentary on the Eagles. I just have a big problem, first of all, with the punishment of professional football players when the justice system chooses not to. That doesn't apply to Michael Vick. He did not get punished by the NFL. He was in prison for a couple years, and there was no additional punishment added. No charges, however, were pursued against Joe Mixon, and there's a reason no charges were pursued against Joe Mixon. I'm not saying he's a great guy. I'm not saying I'd be like, hey, Joe, yeah, my name's Adam. Maybe we could have lunch sometime. We'd really have a lot in common. No, I'm not, I don't get that at this point in my life. Don't get confused about the relationship between players and fans. Yeah, he's from the hood, I think, and the NFL has an issue with that. Most of the players are black, and a lot of them are from the hood, and that's not the kind of people who buy club seats to games and personal seat licenses. So the NFL has to be very wary how it deals with the racial thing, even though the obvious factor is 70% of the league is black. Give you another view here. So Joe Mixon, the reason no charges were ever pursued against him is because he was justified in what he did. Legally, I'm talking about. In other words, she hit him first. She technically assaulted him before there was a hit. It went like this. What happened beforehand isn't relevant in a legal sense. She pushed him. That is assault. He spit on her. From the video I can see, which you can see online. Then she hit him in his face. He might not have caused permanent damage. He reacted within a quarter second and hit her the way a huge black guy who's a running back for University of Oklahoma can hit. He, within like a quarter of a second, punched her out, and she was hurt with damages. But in a legal sense, you're allowed to retaliate, especially when it's immediate. Really, only when it's immediate. If it's premeditated, we have another situation if you're not in any danger. But it was so short, and there's no reason, if you're a football player, that your face isn't any bit as sensitive as another guy. If she had punched him in the leg or some of those huge arms, it might have been a different story, whether she could have hurt him. But he said his face hurt, though in a quarter of a second. You can't process this information, and the situation had escalated, and apparently this is not really a mitigating factor in any criminal sense. The N-word was thrown around, and you know what, ESPN and them are being a little insincere, because when they play it up, their social justice warrior mentality is that there's nothing worse than saying the N-word. Remember what happened with John Rocker, who said nothing anti-black, by the way, but it was simply words, but they treated him like he was public enemy number one. Yeah, I agree, Ron Corey. He needed to walk away, and he was 18 at the time, and he could be more mature. But the issue is, in a legal sense, there's no criminal liability there. It's just that simple. But because in the aftermath of Ray Rice and some of the NFL's domestic violence issues, which are real issues, but they wanted to make an example of him, just like Michael Vick was made an example of, not by the NFL, but by the legal system with dogfighting. And I'm going to say I had a problem with what happened with Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson, because no charges were pursued against them. And I just don't think for PR reasons the league should do that, because eventually you're going to have a situation in which someone is arrested and not convicted. He's punished and he wasn't guilty. That to some extent is what happened with Ray Lewis. I don't know whether he was guilty or not. I think he probably was. But you can't, that was murder. Murder is either there or not. You can't sort of punish someone for murder. You can't suspend someone for a couple games for murder. It's either here or there. But when it's a lower level offense, maybe you can, and it works out okay for everyone. Yeah, Ron, you're writing no criminal liability, but it goes to his demeanor and common sense. But it's a couple years later, and there's a big difference between 18 and 22 or 21 or whatever he is now. That's just my view. And you know what? It is a racial thing to some extent. The NFL has to be wary of the league being too black to turn off season ticket holders, and it is something they and the NBA have to deal with. So there's a lot of hypocrisy on race and all that. But Ray Rice, let's keep in mind, we don't know what happened beforehand. Yeah, he hit her. Absolutely. She married him. His child gets to grow up in a two-parent home, which is more than 50% of black children get to these days. Part of the issue is Ray Rice's productivity was declining, but I had a problem with that. Adrian Peterson, this was one of his children by a number of women. He was too aggressive in punishing him for something related to video games. And, no charges filed. I mean, it's kind of gruesome. He used the switch, and I think the kid's testicles were involved, and ugly. But they did not pursue charges, which for me is how it's an either-or thing with criminal liability. And he lost a year of being paid well. Yeah, maybe he got a year at the end of his career, but he's not getting paid well at this point compared to what he was for the Saints. He lost his money for that year with the Vikings, and he would have liked to get paid. And you know what? I want to say one more thing. There was so much hypocrisy by liberals on this thing. I remember the big thing. It was almost funny. Jesse Jackson was concerned with the racial makeup of the committee of women and whoever was supposed to deal with domestic violence issues. He said there weren't enough blacks on there. And that's what he was concerned about, not the fact that this black man lost his livelihood. And by the way, Ray Rice, in addition, I was just talking about Adrian Peterson there, never played again in the NFL. Again, it might have been a PR thing. He could have certainly helped the team to some extent, even if he would not be a star again. So that's just my view. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on here. My personal view is don't punish people for things that the justice system chooses not to even pursue charges on. Just me, it's a flawed system. You don't necessarily get the best defense, and the PR factor, which should not come up in a legal situation, does come up there. And that's just me. That's the way I feel. And by the way, the Eagles may be in a stronger position to draft him because they've had the positive experience with Michael Vick, who was, by all accounts, a great teammate and really turned himself into a mensch after being in prison and just became a solid citizen after that. So they have that in their background. So I guess that's good for me as an Eagles fan, that the fans would likely be more forgiving. And then there are teams like the New England Patriots who have, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft at this point can just do whatever they want. The fans will accept it. Other teams probably wouldn't be such a good idea if they had PR issues in the past. The Minnesota Vikings, for example, come to mind. Baltimore Ravens certainly can't draft them. So that's my view about the NFL draft. Stop being hypocrites. Give the guy another chance. Yeah, I'm a conservative, but I really do believe everyone should be treated equal under the law, and there should not be sort of extrajudicial criminal punishment by the league. And we know how phony the NFL is. Come on, we know who's running that. Maybe not as bad as ESPN or the NBA, but there's a lot of social justice warrior tendencies in the NFL as well, which probably is not the way the players feel, but that's who the powers that be are in this deep state situation. So tomorrow I hope I can tell you that Joe Mixon has joined the Eagles, though I prefer if they can manage to get him in the second or third round. That's where he'll probably go, rather than have to spend a first round pick on him. So enjoy the NFL draft. That's me from the beach, and hopefully you were able to hear just a little bit of it. I will get this wind tunnel, windscreen situation fixed, so in the future I can do videos from the beach without much of a problem. Oh yeah, one more thing here. I just forgot to mention it. I didn't think I noticed. felt like you were in imminent danger, I guess would be relevant, not absolutely immediate self-defense. In a situation like in which a woman hits a man first, a man who's considerably stronger. But the law doesn't make that distinction, so just keep that in mind. And you know what? I don't want to hear it from people who push so hard for women to be able to serve side by side in the Marines with men, or who are pushing these Hollywood movies in which women are just as badass as men. You know, don't say that on one side, and then, you know, cry about Joe Mixon being allowed in the NFL on the other hand. All right.